This has been a subject that has interested me all my life. Like so many people growing up in this modern culture of ours, I grew up enmeshed in science fiction, grew up seeing shows like Carl Sagan's Cosmos, talking about billions and billions of stars and the high probability of extraterrestrials existing out in the universe. And of course, I heard many a tale about crash saucers, government cover-ups, pickled aliens, alien abductions, contact with UFOs, and all other manner of paranormal and strange phenomenon. So tonight, I'd like to give you a little bit of insight into the perspectives that I think have the most merit when it comes to UFOs. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of disagreement about the nature of the UFO phenomenon. There is certainly a lot of debunking out there, but there's also a lot of belief. A lot of beliefs in some pretty strange ideas, a lot of beliefs in strange ideas that actually are true. But there is a very real and physical phenomenon, and it has very real physical and psychical effects upon the environment and the witnesses to it. Now, is it going to work now?
It worked earlier.
It worked a minute ago.
Yeah.
All right. So, among the things I want to do tonight is provide you with as much information as we can squeeze into these couple of hours that could lead you in directions that you may want to follow up on. As Bob alluded to, I founded the Anomaly Archives. It has thousands of books on the subjects of consciousness, parapsychology, UFOs, ghosts and the paranormal, hauntings, out-of-body experiences, and whatnot. And there's a lot of different perspectives that people have never even heard of, and I think that people would benefit from a wider perspective on these different alternative views on the UFO phenomena. But some of the topics that we're going to cover are the different approaches to studying the phenomenon. We'll briefly touch on the fact that it does appear that this phenomenon has been with us throughout human history. We're going to touch on a lot of the psychological explanations that have been bandied about by skeptics and debunkers to try to disprove the possibility of actual contact with extraterrestrials. And we're going to talk about perception, the nature of consciousness itself, and useful tools like drugs. We'll also be talking about things like mind at large, Carl Jung's collective unconscious, and the parapsychological literature that I think is actually more important to understanding UFOs than just collecting UFO reports and physical trace cases. We'll also touch on the issue of dreams and what part they may play or be able to tell us about the nature of UFO contact. And we'll go into some more exotic hypotheses about the nature of the intelligences behind the UFO phenomenon. And then we'll touch on what different human agencies, whether they be tribal or corporate, may have known about UFOs and what they may be doing with that knowledge. Now, I was a wee little lad when I was already seeing, the science fiction on TV and hearing about UFOs, checking out books at my elementary school library. I remember one year getting that little action figure. This is a little bendy doll for the Close Encounters, the Steven Spielberg movie, very famous, obviously. Years later, I would discover that two of my favorite foundational UFO researchers were intimately connected to the production of that movie. Some of you may know that the grandfather of ufology, J. Allen Hynek, actually makes an appearance in the film, just very briefly. He's just there looking at the UFO at the end and with his, I think, his pipe in hand. But Steven Spielberg consulted Jacques Vallée, the French astrophysicist, computer scientist, who I regard as the preeminent figure in ufology for putting forth some of the most important ideas to understanding the mystery. That around that same time that the movie was coming out and I got that action figure, one of my grandmothers, who had been running WRKL in New York State, told me about her having an abstract artist that she knew. She was a artist herself in the Greenwich Village area. And she told me, yeah, I've had this artist on who he started investigating close encounters, and he's been interacting with people who claim to have been abducted, and he's got witnesses from around the world who've never known each other, never communicated with each other, and they're all telling the same story of being abducted by the same big-headed, big black-eyed entities. And this had a profound effect on me. I was reading about these stories, but like the whole abduction hysteria, if you will, had not happened yet. This was a couple of years before Bud Hopkins had even published his first book on the subject. And of course, she was referring to Bud Hopkins. And so that was one of the early things that I think predisposed me to an interest in following up on UFOs. Now, typically when people meet me for the first time, they've had somebody refer to me as, oh, that's that UFO guy. If you've got any strange experiences, you might want to tell them to him. But depending upon what you know about me, you may also come up to me and say, oh, that's that guy that's really into dreams. If you have interest in dreams, you might want to go talk to him as well. But I really do attribute my early age recall of dreams as being really what synced my interest in this, because it felt to me that there's nothing more paranormal that we can each experience than the dream state every night. Now, we'll talk about dreams a little more in a bit there. This thing is just not okay. So just briefly about myself. Like most people, I've had a lifetime of what I would call minor psychic experiences. Experiences of telepathy with my mother. Lots of typical synchronicities, the kind that almost everybody has experienced, where you think of somebody that you haven't seen or heard from in years, and the next thing you know, their phone's ringing, and it's them. Also had a lot of pre-lucid dreams as a child. Lucid dreams, for those that don't know, are dreams in which you are aware in the dream that you're dreaming and have thus the possibility for controlling the events unfolding in your dreams. I also had what I would call precognitive dreams or visions. Some of them seemed to be dreams, and others just seemed like memories of, oh, I know this happened before, beyond deja vu. All of these things, again, reinforced in my mind the felt reality that there is more to the universe than our scientists typically like to tell us. After graduating from high school, I joined the Austin MUFON group. For y'all that aren't familiar, MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network. Austin's had a proud history of UFO research here with its local group. Did several things. Just when there were sightings in other cities that were reported with the media, I would go and obtain copies of the news footage. Did the audiovisual for local mini conferences that we did. We held the big annual conference here in like 94, 95. Got to meet a lot of really great UFO researchers. And beginning in around 1999, I was asked to lead the local group. Now, before that, I actually was asked to lead the local abductee support group. Now, I'm not an abductee. As far as I know, I've never had any sort of abduction experience. But my good friend Jean Staffen, who founded the group back in '92, a few years later, she got the calling. Something told her she needed to move. So before she did, she asked me if I would be interested, and she put it before the group, the abductees, the experiencers, and they all unanimously agreed that they would like me to lead the group. So for the next 4 years, I led the group, and it was very big at the time. This really was at in the heyday of abduction support groups. They were popping up all around the country, and as Jean Staffen said, the first time she put out the word about this abductee support group, she was inundated with phone calls. She got like 200 phone calls the first weekend. The news media picked it up. They were really into it, ran lots of stories. She met and brought to the group lots of different people who'd had experiences. And the thing I noticed immediately was that while I was used to hearing about the classic alien abduction that we've become so familiar with. There was a wide variety of experiences reported that really went beyond this, waking up in your bedroom, seeing gray aliens, them floating you through the wall, and then suddenly being on the ship and being subjected to the tortures that have become the mainstay of abduction reports. There was a wide variety of other experiencers that were coming to the group as well. People who'd had near-death experiences, people who'd had experiences channeling entities, doing automatic writing, people who'd had out-of-body experiences. And a lot of the times, these same people would have multiple of these different types of anomalous experience. And that really had a profound effect on me, and was one of the things that influenced me to start looking in other directions for alternative explanations. Now, I will just say, I've been called, within days of the incidents, an absolute skeptic and debunker. I've had friends who just thought, you don't believe any of this stuff. You think it's all fantasy, and I'm very quick to say, no, I absolutely do not think this is all fantasy. And then a day or two later, a friend would tell me, you're just such a believer. You believe every crazy story and theory that comes your way. Well, for better or worse, I try to maintain a high level of ambiguity. I think indeterminism is the best way to approach this, that I don't really have any definitive answers. And if somebody tells you they know exactly what UFOs are, I think you should disbelieve them. All of these interests led me to publish my own journal for a number of years called Elf-Infested Spaces, Journal of Possible Paradigms. For those of you McKenna fans out there, you probably know where that reference comes from, but we'll talk about McKenna a little later. All of this led up to my organizing the hosting of the 38th Annual National UFO Conference here in September 2001. There's a poster by my good friend Mac White for that wonderful event that would have been the best UFO conference that never happened. Because, of course, earlier that week, September 11th happened, and the world changed forever, and we couldn't get all the speakers to fly here because the planes weren't flying. So that was a big disappointment, but it's just part of history now. Okay. All right. And in the wake of September 11th, I started editing and writing for the Austin Para-Times, which is a local newspaper dealing with subjects like the paranormal and the parapolitical. I left that magazine to found the Anomaly Archives that you've heard me mention. It, too, is a 501c3 nonprofit. It's a lending library. We're located in the INACS facility up north near technology and research. Around the time before the conference, I had started in late 2000 to stream my own 24/7 web radio station. Of course, at the time, it wasn't called Anomaly Radio, but it has since become known as the Anomaly Radio Network. There's a lot of different shows dealing with the paranormal and the parapolitical.